Hey, friend, and welcome back to PCOS Unfiltered. Nourish, heal, thrive. The podcast where we cut through the noise, ditch the shame, and talk about what it actually takes to heal your body, your mind, and your story. Today's episode is a special one because for once, I'm not the one asking the questions. Dr. Anya Szigeti, functional medicine practitioner, gut health expert, and one of the incredible speakers at our upcoming Unwritten Healing Beyond the Diagnosis event, is flipping the script and interviewing me. We're diving deep into the journey that brought me here, from ER nurse and gym owner to a burned out woman with an autoimmune diagnosis to now, a health and nutrition coach who's fiercely passionate about helping women heal in a whole new way. We'll talk about the identity shifts, the hard pivots, the what the heck is happening to my body moments, and yes, even going gluten-free and dairy-free. I know, RIP cheese boards. This conversation is raw, real, and maybe a little emotional, but I hope it shows you that your diagnosis is not the end of your story. You get to rewrite it. And speaking of rewriting stories, make sure you check out Unwritten, our free virtual event happening this October, where powerful voices are coming together to share the healing tools your doctor never told you were possible. Details are in the show notes. You're not going to want to miss this one. Lastly, the content shared on PCOS Unfiltered is for informational and educational purposes only. The views and opinions expressed by the host and guests are not intended to serve as medical advice. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your diet, exercise, or treatment plan. The information shared is based on personal experience and expert interviews and is not a substitute for professional medical guidance. Now let's get into it.
Hi, so this is so exciting to be able to flip the script today and interview you for a change. I'm really excited about this because I've known you, you're one of my good friends, I've known you for several years. And so I feel like I know a lot about your story, but I'm excited to learn more right along with all your listeners. So without further ado, why don't we hop in and learn more about Lindsie? All right. So many of us are drawn into healthcare because we have a calling to serve others. What initially drew you to nursing, and what did you love most about that role?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for having me today. It's like really weird. um, but yeah, I mean, I went right out of high school and even backtracking, I should say, I was a CNA in high school. Um,
Mm,
so I knew that was the track that I wanted. And I don't know, I feel like coming from a small town, it was like doctor, nurse, teacher, just kind of those like fit in a box type of career paths. Like never imagined I'd be doing what I'm doing today, of course.
mm,
And so yeah, I mean, I was drawn to it. Yes, I think for just learning about the body and the health and science, aspect of it, but ultimately helping people helping people feel better. That's what I'm doing even now, but that was what initially drew me to it. And I feel like too, as women, we kind of have that natural tendency to want to help all
mm,
the time. Um, and so, I mean, yeah, I loved it. I did. And it was amazing. It taught me so many things that I still use today, that I've used even personally. Like when my mother was sick, for example, like my nursing
mhm.
background just kicked right in. And so I did, I loved it, but I outgrew it. I was ready to kind of close that chapter and I wasn't fulfilling my original mission of helping people feel better. And so at some point I felt I just needed to pivot and make a change.
Mhm. Nice. Yes, we definitely have that similar calling to help others with the healthcare piece of that.
Mhm.
But something that I see in medicine, unfortunately, is burnout quite often. And what I see in my clinical practice as well is that our bodies will whisper before they scream. When did you notice those signs of burnout, and how did that show up in your body and in your mind?
Yeah. So, um, like I mentioned, I was a CNA in high school. So I did a co-op program and I did my junior and senior year. I took a class, that I and then became certified as a, CNA nursing assistant. And I worked pretty much every Monday through Friday during the school year, for 3 hours after school. Um, And even over the summer, of course, it led into a summer job and everything too. And then, passed my boards right out of college, worked all through college as a CNA as well. So
Mhm.
total, I was almost 20 years being in that, traditional healthcare model.
Mhm.
And that's the thing. I don't know if there was really one point when I was still a nurse. It was probably more mentally than physically, where the burnout came in. The physical burnout probably happened later. Um, but mentally, with most of that being in the ER, it can wear on you. I mean, I think the burnout rates are higher in the ER and ICU probably in particular, because you really struggle with what you see sometimes.
Mhm.
And there are some crazy things that happen in this world that, that only those in that role could probably tell you. But
Mhm.
on top of that, you also see a lot of people over and over again that aren't getting the help they need outside and maybe even aren't willing to even get that help. They're not willing to help themselves, even.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I've been out of nursing for 7+ years, 7.5 years out of the bedside role, I should say. And it was definitely probably that last year, before I left that I was really just starting to feel the pull and I knew there just had to be something else out there.
Mhm. What I see a lot is this tension, this imbalance between wanting to help others heal while emptying ourselves as caregivers. Um, and what sort of, you shared a little bit about it, but what sort of internal conflicts did you experience, especially as you alluded to in that final year?
I just wasn't as engaged. I wasn't as, yeah, my passion was fading and I felt like then I was failing myself because that's not me. When I do something, I want to do it fully. Um, and so I was pulling away from it. I was not doing a good job, probably like I should have. I probably had some poor attitudes with people that again was just, just not me. And I was always the one that picked up the extra shift. And maybe to like at some point I did back away from that and that was probably an indicator because I was like, okay, this is gonna be way too much. And I did end up a little sicker, more so. But yeah, I knew I wasn't doing the job that I used to do. I knew I wasn't fully engaged with my role anymore, and that was a big indicator.
Hmm. Often I see that there's like this moment that kind of clicks and you're like, I can't do this anymore. This isn't sustainable. You kind of alluded to this gradual decline in your performance and your productivity. Did you have a turning point moment where you were like, I have to make a change, like this is no longer serving me and I'm not doing, the best job that I can here?
Yeah, I feel like so I started training for an Ironman. um, and I was missing out on that work-life balance.
Mm,
And then I got also in there met my now husband. And so it just kind of became very eye-opening. I think that, I was nonstop giving to this job that wasn't really rewarding me
mm,
anymore. And so I wanted some of that balance and there was I didn't have the support, let's just say, from the management and the administrators above me because I was in an administrative role myself when I left, but they weren't as supportive of realizing that I needed that balance as well. And so that was probably, yeah, the point. And then I had also joined a gym that I fell in love with,
Mhm.
which we will get into. Um, and me being the fitness freak that I was like, oh, this would be so cool to own a gym. And so everything just kind of like, yeah, kept going. And I was just like being pulled to that, like, oh, what if we just learn more about opening this gym? And I finally said to, again, my now husband, which the funny thing was, we had both like early on in our relationship said, what would you do if you won, $1 million, won the lottery, whatever. And we both said we would open a gym.
You're right.
So yeah. So when I said to him, when I finally was at the tipping point and said, hey, why don't we just, make a phone call and see what happens? Because it was a franchise. So I was like, let's just talk to somebody and see what this would take.
Mhm.
And yeah. And then we did. We took the leap. So
Yeah, that's incredible. I definitely want to dive into the gym chapter, but real quick before we leave the nursing chapter, I know that your identity plays a really big role with how we define health or look at health. How did being a nurse shape your view of health back then? And what was maybe missing from your perspective when you kind of look back on it now?
oh my gosh. That's a big one, of course.
Yes, I wanted to ask it.
um yeah, I mean, it was traditional healthcare. And that's why I feel like I have to watch myself sometimes because I don't want to bash that because there is a place for that. I mean, especially, in the emergency room. Um,
Mhm.
but my view was, prescribe or cut. That was how I was taught for, like I said, almost 20 years. You come in, you don't feel good. I mean, and even looking back, there were some instances where now I know I'm like, that person had a gluten intolerance, or that person had some, some type of sensitivity, some food sensitivities going on. And they came in and we would do the whole slew of tests, because that's what you do. It's very like you come in for abdominal pain, you get X, Y, and Z. You come in for chest pain, you get X, Y, and Z. Oh, you cut yourself, we're just going to sit you up, so yeah, I mean, that's what I thought there was. Um, and I maybe like as my view started to shift, my only thought was, oh, these people aren't exercising. They're not working out. I had
Yeah.
I had no clue about the nutrition piece.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, it's
Mhm.
like, oh, yeah, protein, sure. Yeah, you need protein. Um,
Mhm.
but definitely the nutrition piece was what was missing throughout all of that. And yeah, it's missing in the traditional healthcare model, and we'll get into
Still today, unfortunately.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, let's shift into the gym phase of your life, as you alluded to, because I know a lot of practitioners and healthcare professionals, they look for outlets when traditional medicine, Western medicine feels really, really constraining. And you shared a little bit about your inspiration to open the gym, and if you don't mind expanding on that, and how did you feel like that was the solution or your next step?
Yeah, that was helping people. That was ultimately how I wanted to help people, I thought at the time, and it was. Um, because again, I was only focused so much on fitness.
Hmm.
Um, and I just thought that, that was the missing piece. It was also something that was just like my baby, right? I mean, it wasn't working for, a corporation, a hospital, a big company, um, where I'm being told what to do, especially when you get told, do more with less. I'm like, I get to actually run this thing and really serve people in the way that I want to. Um,
Hmm.
so yes, I mean, from the beginning, of course, it was an amazing experience, really helping people in the way that I wanted to.
Hmm. Oh, that's beautiful. And then we all carry different beliefs about health and fitness and weight. What did you believe during this chapter about exercise, about weight loss, about health?
Well, it's so funny. So, I even remembered when we opened, especially because we partnered with like a meal plan delivery, company, whatever. And we came across, of course, the posters and stuff for it, saying 80%, of health and weight loss happens in the kitchen. And I was like, whatever. I was like, I can work out all I want and eat what I want, and I'm fine. I always felt connected to the people though that would come in and say, "Oh my gosh, yeah, they're losing weight." But they'd go to the doctor and they'd say, I don't have to be on blood pressure medicine anymore. Or, the doctor says I'm doing so well.
Hmm.
I lost weight. I don't need to go on anything. I was like maybe borderline, like anybody that had that kind of story, I was always like really, really drawn to. And the weight loss piece as well, because I knew that yes, that was part of health. But again, I was still rejecting the nutrition, the nutrition
Hmm.
piece.
Interesting. Yeah. So this was definitely a transitional step for you from Western medicine and in the way that you served people from being a nurse to being a gym owner, drastic change. How did your approach shift from um, working in medicine to the gym environment?
It's a lot more fun.
That's important. That's a huge piece of health. Quality of life
um,
in general.
it was like, I mean, it's so funny because I would have people, even after we've been open at the gym a couple years, and they would like even just start asking me, "Will you ever go back to nursing?" And I would say no, like, like right before they could even, finish the sentence. Um, yeah, I mean, it was fun, but it was just a lot of everything. You wore all the hats. Yes, I coached the classes, which of course I think in my mind when I opened it was what I was going to be doing like all the time, and I didn't really have to worry. Sure, I'll hire some other people to hire, to teach the other classes, but I didn't really need to worry about all this stuff. But no, that's not how it works. Yes, I had to hire those people. I was the HR. I was the the janitor, cleaning up stuff. The maintenance person. I mean, it was crazy. And so COVID happened. Like
Mhm.
that was huge.
Mhm.
That was a huge tipping point, which yes, we'll go more into detail on that. But that first year, we just saw amazing growth. I felt like I was really, really fulfilling my passion. Um, Again, nothing like I had expected with nursing. I was having a blast, helping so many people. Um, my thing was I couldn't like understand why some people were getting results, why some people couldn't keep results,
Yeah.
and why some people just couldn't get results at all.
Mm. Mhm.
So Um, so yeah, it was again like those first couple years were still great, but once COVID was the big shift then with the gym that
Mm.
just changed everything.
Do you want to share more about that now?
Yeah, we can. So yeah, we closed for about 8 weeks. Yeah, like 8 weeks, I think, or so it was. And of course, I mean, if you're listening, you probably know. It was right. We had no idea what was happening.
Mhm.
Um, we of course pivoted really quickly. We did a whole bunch of online classes. We even just did fun like live, going live on Facebook. We had a YouTube channel. Um,
Mhm.
just everything to try to keep people engaged and, positive, stay positive through all of it, of course. But when we came back, it was just never the same. I think everybody's view of health changed.
Mhm.
Um, and unfortunately, we lost a lot of members during that time. Um, we had a lot of, um, even our instructors, we came back from it and a lot of those instructors quit. It was
Mhm.
huge, huge change. Even just like I said, we'd only been open maybe a year and a half-ish when it happened. And
Oh,
so I think everybody's view, and then, we would open and we'd be climbing again, and then another variant would happen, and then it would go back down. So yeah, so mentally, physically, myself, my husband, all the other coaches, we were on this roller coaster. Um, and that was just a huge, huge turning point, all of it.
how many years did you guys own the gym altogether?
About 5.
About 5. Okay.
Um,
And so, from an outsider perspective, being a gym owner, that probably, you guys looked like you were, you had it made. Everything was rocking, rolling. I mean, of course, COVID was a challenging, the pandemic was a challenge for literally everybody and every type of business for sure, especially small business owners was very challenging for us for sure. But just in general, your business looked like a success from the outside, but feeling fulfilled internally is very different. So, where did you still feel unfulfilled, even though you felt, you were serving your purpose of leading the workout classes and helping other people achieve, your definition of health at that phase of your life?
yeah. I mean, I think I've never really shared this like publicly, so I think this is, it's been a couple years, 2.5 years since we've closed. We always, even, especially my husband and I, but we always just smiled in front of everybody. And looking back, I'm like, should we have told our members more about what was going on internally? But no, we didn't want them to feel like the gym was failing, because all they knew is that they were taking some fun classes, kickboxing classes, and losing weight
Which
and
were a lot of fun. I
seeing
loved them.
results. Yeah. um, and so yeah, internally though, um, it was a huge struggle, huge, huge struggle, because I could see the numbers, I could see just the way that things were headed. But then, of course, being torn between like getting amazing feedback still from members, and,
Mhm.
but then again, the merry-go-round with coaches, coming and going. And that's definitely, I started changing them too, where I was like, probably snapping, like again, on the inside, members didn't really see this, but I was
Mhm.
probably snappier with with the, with some of the coaches um as well. But yeah, we always kind of kept a, happy, peppy attitude. So none of the members had any idea what was going on really behind the scenes. And so I
Mhm.
feel like when we did eventually close, or, somebody else took it over, it was a shock to a lot of people, because they had no idea that uh, it was as bad as it was. And so, yeah,
Mhm.
internally, I mean, there were times, I mean, I was affecting my sleep, my appetite, I was constantly go, 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 just trying to keep up with everything. Um, Thinking I could just climb out of this hole, I'm like, if I can do this, we'll be better. If I can do that, we'll be better. And we never got there. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. And looking back, do you think now that you should have shared more with your members at the time, or are you happy with the decision that you guys made?
I mean, I've thought about that. And I don't know. I wish there was an instruction manual for that.
Oh gosh, I wish there was instruction manual for everything, right? Just do.
I know. I mean, I would say probably not, like, yes and no, because, maybe during the couple years, like I said, after we returned from COVID, and then I also had some personal struggles, well, with my health, and then with my mom got very sick. And so, maybe that's the point where I should have shared more those last like 6 months to a year then,
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
that I could have gotten more supported. They would have been more understanding, because I think the members just, it was always about the members, and I always tried to keep it about the members. And at some point it had to be a little bit about me and my health too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. We all go through health struggles and journeys, whether we're experiencing them ourselves or by, with a loved one. And you kind of had both going on at the same time. And I know that many of us in healthcare didn't expect to become patients ourselves.
Yes.
Speak from experience here too. Um, would you share what your symptoms began that you couldn't ignore anymore?
Yeah. So going back to COVID. So it was a kickboxing gym. So we're punching a bag, kicking a bag, right? And of course, the peak where I'm already starting to get a little stressed, and then COVID happens, you're, even stressed more, all the unknowns. My husband and I went up to North Carolina and stayed with my stepsons at the time. Um, I would wake up with joint pain in my hands. And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, I punch a bag, like maybe I hit the bag wrong. But then a few weeks into it, when hadn't been punching any bags, I would still wake up with some bad joint pain in my hands. And it was just a very, very weird pain. Like it didn't, I've sprained things before. You get some bumps and bruises. It just did not feel like a typical injury type of pain. Um, and I ignored it. Kept ignoring it. It wasn't every day but
Mhm.
especially like in the mornings was probably the worst. Sometimes it would happen, kind of creep in a little bit throughout the day, but occasionally I'd wake, in the mornings. The other thing was migraines. And I had never had headaches or migraines like that before. Sure, I get the occasional headache, but I remember especially one incident where I was just like sitting on the couch and it hit me so fast. I got like, my face was flushed. I felt like my face was on fire. I felt like I was going to throw up, and I just had like the worst headache pain. Um, and then we went back to, somewhat normal. And then in May, towards the end of May, we were out with some friends for pizza. And I had, I think, like a couple wings, and I had maybe a piece of pizza that I finished. I was like working on it. And I had this intense pain in my abdomen, more in like the epigastric area. And I looked like I was 6 months pregnant all of a sudden. And I looked over at my husband and I'm like, we got to go. Like something is not right, not right at all. So we get home. I'm like, do I have to go to the bathroom? Do I have to throw up? I had no idea what was going on. It hurt. All I could do was curl up on the couch, lay on my left side, pull my knees into my chest, curl up in a ball. And that seemed to relieve it a little bit. Um, and it just so happened, I mean, my nursing background, even though it's not necessarily something you don't learn a lot about, but my nursing brain kind of kicked in, and I was like, I think this might be a gluten intolerance. So my husband was traveling for work the following week. He's going to be gone all week. And I was like, you know what? This is perfect time because I'm just going to cut it out and see what happens. And
Mhm.
after a day, I felt so much better. Now I should say my stomach felt better. I was still having some joint pain. Um,
Mhm.
but eventually though, the migraines stopped too. And I wasn't, feeling that way. So after a week then of giving it up, already was starting to feel really good. But I was still
Mm.
having the joint pain. And so I was like, there's still something else going on.
Mhm.
And I think in my mind, uh, I knew what traditional medicine would have done for me. And so I chose not to go that route. And I reached out to this wonderful doctor, Anya.
I've heard of her.
um, and yeah, and we started doing all the testing and everything, and got the diagnosis of lupus. I did end up seeing an endocrinologist that said maybe even RA. Now we do know some things that there might have been some celiac playing a role in there as well. So, yeah, but I mean, that was 6 months probably of me ignoring what my body was trying to tell me
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
until I had to listen. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, because it's, we mask it, we mute it, we ignore it as much as we can, but our bodies just keeps on, it's whispering and then it's going to start screaming. So, I know from personal experience as well that receiving an autoimmune diagnosis can be both validating on one hand because you're not crazy, right? All of your symptoms are valid. Stuff
Yeah.
is actually, my body is not happy, but it can also be terrifying. So, why don't you share how you felt when you got the diagnosis from me? You're welcome. And what fears or frustrations, those sorts of things came up for you?
Um, I mean, luckily, yes, like even though it had been 6 months, I think we still caught it, early enough. Um, but I mean, yeah, I was confused probably, especially because in my mind, I was like, I take care of myself. I work out, I eat pretty well, Um, and so I didn't really understand like where this was coming from. Um, I knew immediately I'd made the right choice though, because again, I felt like if I would have just done a traditional route, I probably would have been handed like an antacid and, said, call me if it gets worse or, whatever. Um, but I mean, I think you were a big part of this too, it, in the fact that this wasn't going to be it for me. I was like, I can feel better. I know I can feel better. Um, and yeah, I did. And I turned it around. but I knew there was hope. And I feel like a big part of that was you helping me see that too.
Well, one piece of true healing, and there's lots of pieces of true healing, one piece is letting go of old beliefs. So, what did you have to release in order to start getting better?
It was that whole nutrition piece that I thought didn't play the role that it did. That was probably number one. But I mean, I think because I cut out the gluten and already started seeing the changes that I had, like I knew I was like food, food is really um a big a big player in all of this. And I really had to start seeing it as something to nourish my body, and fuel it, and not just I treated food more as a reward
Mm,
for things, for a great workout and
mhm,
a hard day's work. But I had to see the healing properties of food, and
mhm.
yeah, started changing for me.
Okay, that's fantastic. And that's not uncommon to see food as a reward because that's what we've been trained very often in our society as well. That, you did great, so you need to, you get to go have a glass of wine or you get to go, you get dessert tonight or whatever. It's a special
Yeah.
occasion. Let's indulge. Um, And so you did allude to this just now, but I just want to see if there's anything else that you want to share because it does sound like your healing journey redefined everything that you thought you knew about health in particular. And how did it challenge your perspective as both a nurse and a gym owner?
Um, I mean, as a gym owner, we weren't, so I did end up, I went and got my personal training certificate and, my nutrition, certification. And then of course, eventually my health certification. And so as a gym owner, I mean, yeah, thinking back as a nurse, I remember taking a nutrition class, but it was nothing like it was like, how many carbs to give to a diabetic, or something, associated with insulin and how much they should be eating if they're taking this much insulin, to that effect. as far as the gym, we would hand them a piece of paper with kind of what to eat, what not to eat type of deal. But we really couldn't like fully give them, advice. And then once I did get my nutrition certification and started, going through my own journey, I was able to start implementing more of that because I was also, I became the patient. I became the, I got to sit on the other side and see what some of these women were struggling with in the gym too. And so as I was going through it, I was able to better help the members too.
Hmm. Absolutely. And as you've alluded to previously as well, food is such a powerful piece of the health puzzle, but often overlooked, especially in Western medicine. As you alluded to, with nursing, you get very little nutrition education. Medical doctors, in their almost 10 years of training, get maybe 5 hours of nutrition. So it's definitely highly, highly lacking in the Western medicine, conventional medicine model. Um, how has your relationship with food shifted from before your diagnosis to now?
You're gonna love this. The convenience factor, because as I was working as a nurse, 12-hour shifts, first of all, a lot of the times you're on your feet, you're go, go, go. And if you didn't prepare anything, yeah, you were grabbing because by the time you ate 8 hours into your shift, sometimes like you were grabbing whatever you could, whatever was in sight. I would also, if I worked a couple back-to-back shifts, I would just pick up like Starbucks, and one of their muffins or something and of course, sugary, sugary coffee drink, on the way to work. So it was a lot of convenience, living that I did. And then even with the gym, because again, I was wearing all the hats. And so I was constantly eating protein bars full of sugar and, modified things. I had, sugary yogurts on hand. And like in my mind, that was still like healthy. Um,
Right.
but it was big time the convenience side. And then I had to flip that switch and start realizing that I had to make this a priority. I had to really think about what I'm putting in my body and prepare those foods in advance. And even like my husband used to do all the cooking, especially when I was working as a nurse and, he works from home when he's here, but, um, it shifted also to me cooking all the
Mm,
time, a lot, which was fine. Um, but yeah, I think the convenience thing was the biggest piece of that.
mhm. Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. When you were sharing about the 12-hour shifts, it brought me back to when I was in the service. I was doing 12-hour shifts as well. Same scenario. Like I couldn't leave my post because I was on call. Like I had to be right there. So it didn't matter how many pots of coffee that it took. It wasn't cups anymore, it was pots. Um, and then I had to grab whatever was right there on hand because I couldn't leave. I couldn't go anywhere. I'm, directing search and rescue operations or whatever it was at that time. So yeah, the convenience piece of it was that brought that memory right back for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Remember those days.
Yep.
Um, so you alluded to gluten playing a pretty significant role in a lot of your symptoms, and gluten and autoimmunity are very closely connected. What was the hardest part for you about going gluten free?
That's the thing. It was not hard for me, but I've learned I'm not the norm. There are a lot of, yeah, there are a lot of women, and even I remember talking to some members at the gym that, had said, "Oh, I just got a celiac diagnosis," for example, and they were like, "Yeah, but I'm going to continue eating it and I'll just suffer." And in my mind, I was like, I know how I'm going to feel, even if I just have like the littlest thing, which even it ended up being like, I don't know, a few months into the journey after I realized it was the gluten thing. My husband made a drink for me, an alcoholic drink, but anyways, But we discovered it was like a, some type of flavored liqueur, and apparently it probably came from something with weed. I literally had like a sip. And again, I looked like I was since 6 months pregnant. So I knew even just having like, even if I thought I could have the smallest little bite of something, I knew
Mhm.
how I was going to feel. And so for me, it was super easy. But I do realize that that is not the case for
Mhm.
a lot of people that go through that.
Wasn't there a breadcrumb situation too, like a gluten-free breadcrumb situation? Have I heard of
Yeah.
that?
There was a gluten-free breadcrumb situation. There I learned about cross reactivities with
Okay.
gluten oats,
Mhm.
so there's definitely been still a lot of learning on this journey, for things that can still give me that same reaction for sure. And some of those were, unknown at the time. But all the typical breads and pastas and stuff. Like I was just like, okay. And and I was probably one that had, especially like on days that I'd run, I'd have a slice of toast with peanut butter on it. That'd become my like pre-run snack, and I was just like, okay, not gonna do that anymore. And I didn't really have an issue with it.
Let me ask a follow-up question to that because yes, you are the exception in that when I said gluten-free, you were like, okay. And you were gluten-free like the next second. I was like, oh, okay. How did your family react?
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm actually talking about interviewing my husband because Um, because I mean, hearing his side of things, I mean, he was very supportive, especially like he saw that I was not feeling good, and yeah, my hands hurt, and I was just like not my normal self, he saw that. Um, and
And for those that don't know you, you're a tough, cool cucumber. And so if you're saying you're in pain and you're not, and you're moody or anything like that, like that's way out of the norm for you. So
yeah,
anyone that doesn't know
yeah.
Lindsay, that piece of information.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, he was obviously very supportive. We don't eat out a whole lot. We were probably still eating out a little bit more at the time. We now definitely don't eat out a whole lot. But if we do go out, he's always the first one to make a joke. He's like, at least she's cute. She might be high maintenance, but at least she's cute, as he tells the waiter that I can't have gluten and dairy and all these things. Um,
Mhm.
and so yeah, and then his kids, my stepkids, of course, not didn't really have an issue. I just always kind of had my separate thing. I do have one stepson that loves his pasta. And that was probably, I was eating a lot of it with him during COVID, and that was probably what was just amplifying the whole thing. So of course, like, there were some jokes made in the beginning, but in general, of course, yeah, they were all super supportive, and it's even been a learning curve, I think, for them. Um,
Mhm.
but I think with me cooking though too, I can make um I'm totally fine with making mine gluten free and then, gluten full or dairy free and dairy full. Um, and
Mhm.
yeah, so it wasn't too much of a transition, and it wasn't overnight either. That's the thing. I mean, that was years
Mhm.
making of, yeah, like, okay, she's not having gluten, but now we also realize she can't have this. And so kind of learning some of those things along the way.
Yeah, that's awesome that you stepped up and said, okay, I now am not able to have this item. And so I'm going to take the steps that I need to take for my body and start cooking and being in control of the ingredients as best as we can, right? Um, and learning as we go and evolving and not being too hard on ourselves when maybe we're misled by the food industry on what's on the
Yeah,
label, things like that.
yeah,
Um, but I also noticed that sometimes gluten-free isn't enough. And sometimes, you might hit this plateau where you're like, okay, I'm doing that, but maybe there needs to be more. So what kind of nudged you, or did you realize that you needed to kind of take the next step and look at other food groups that you might be consuming that might not have been serving you.
Yeah. I mean, again, this has been like 5 years now, basically. And so I don't have dairy now. And I honestly, I went a little bit back and forth with that. I did like a cleanse and I cut out dairy, and then I thought it was very eye-opening. I went without dairy then for a little while, and then I thought, okay, well, I can bring back in some like, good quality dairy, as long as it's, the good quality cheeses or organic cottage cheese, right? But I think I've become so in tune with my body. And that can be, I think there's like a limit to that, because yeah, you don't want to be so in tune that it's stressing you out more and you're so hyper focused on, all the things that it's causing stress on your relationships and all that either. But I just knew something was off. And I ended up removing dairy, and which is going on like I think almost a year now again, because I was breaking out. And I mean, I've mentioned this in other episodes, and I think because it was such a big eye opener for me, how much the skin especially talks to you. Yeah. Um, and so again, the correlation, kind of like with the gluten, I was like, oh, you're not supposed to eat and feel like feel bad. Same thing kind of, yeah, same thing kind of with the dairy. Like I just removed that and I was like, wow, like, yeah, I feel better. My skin is much clearer. I'm not breaking out like I was. Um, because that's the thing too. You can still remove some of those things, and then, okay, if you're still not seeing, maybe you can add it back in, and you have to kind of play with things a little bit. But I don't know. I think for me, because I am just so in tune with my body now, I just kind of knew dairy wasn't serving me anymore.
It's really interesting you mentioned about being in tune with your body. I'm deep in the research and writing of my second book, Convenience is Killing You. And it's reminding me a lot about my journey too. I'm going on 15 years. Yay. Um, but when I was in the throes of the ultra processed convenience foods, the gluten frees, the low fats, all that goodness, there was a piece of it that definitely disconnected me from my body and knowing what my body needed. And so that is one of the big takeaways for me when I look back and say, once I started removing these ultra processed foods from my diet, now I can feel my body and understand and hear my body a lot better. So I can tell what's serving me and what's not relatively quickly. Like I
Yeah.
can consume something and I'm like, oh, that's
Yeah.
not gonna fly. I mean, I still do testing and things like that because I'm a science geek and I wanna know more and I wanna learn and I wanna see the science and all that fun stuff. But I definitely, that revelation came to me actually just yesterday when I was working on a section of my book, and I was like, oh my gosh, they hijack your hunger hormones, they hijack your thyroid hormones, your sex hormones, like all the different hormones, but they also just have you disconnect from understanding what your body actually needs. And when we reconnect with that, it's a beautiful thing, and it just I think just propels and accelerates the healing journey.
Oh,
Piece.
sure. Yeah. No.
And then you mentioned skin too, which is another lovely, outward reflection of what's going on inside, usually the reflection
Oh,
of
yeah.
what's going on in our gut.
Yeah.
And so,
And yeah. And that was even, I mean, again, not listening to my body, but as a nurse, I remember going to like a hairdresser, and they would say occasionally, like, oh, your scalp looks inflamed. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm fine. you know? So again, like that could have been some signs there. Um, and yeah, I mean, internally we found out, of course, that my gut was an absolute mess. I mean, probably not as bad as it could be, but yeah, that was definitely playing a big role in all that. And so even, that was 2020, even a couple years in then, it was the skin that really told me again that something was going on. And that's when I was going through the stuff with my mom. And it wasn't even necessarily, abdominal issues. It was my skin that was talking to me. And again, by that time, I was really starting to listen and understand my body more. And so I knew something else was going on. And sure enough, it was.
But that's beautiful that you were able to um, take what your body was telling you, listen this time, and actually listen and say, okay, something needs to change. What's kind of next on my list of modifications on my healing journey. So that's a beautiful phase to go through. Not always fun, but beautiful
Yeah.
from that. Um, and so you did allude to this a little bit with how you viewed food, obviously as a convenience and then kind of as a reward, because we know that food is not just physical. There's a huge emotional component to it as well. Um, what did you learn about identity shifts and emotions tied to giving up some of these certain foods?
Um, yeah, you still learn, even though yes, it was easy for me, there was still some association, with things that, like for example, my family, my grandma used to make it, and then my mom made it, and it was like a pretzel layer. It was for Christmas. All like usually Thanksgiving and Christmas, and it was like a pretzel layer on the bottom with some type of cream cheese layer, and then like some strawberries on top, strawberry and strawberry jello and stuff. And so I do remember those first couple holidays thinking, oh, I can't have that now. But flipping the script and saying, that's not serving my body, and that's okay. And then coming up with some other alternatives, something else that might be similar to that I can start now bringing to my family and to the table. And so, um, yeah, yes, like we kind of said with the family and everything, my identity changed because I kind of became the health nut. And I feel like even now, like when I'm with the stepkids, for example, they almost think I'm the like, I'm gonna like shame them if they eat whatever. And that even happens sometimes with like friends or something if we're out. And I'm like, no, that's your choice. Like this is my journey. I've been on it. I'll be there to support you if it comes a time when you need that support.
Yeah.
Um, but down deep, yeah, like I feel like this really helped open my eyes and really, yeah, I was living a life of go, 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 convenience, high, like always putting so much pressure on myself.
Hmm.
So I'm still there. I'm still me, but I'm just a healthier version now of me. Like, yes, like, and I understand the balance between that. Yes, I
Hmm.
love to perform at a high level and I put a lot of pressure on myself, but but I understand that there's other priorities along with that now that I have to have that balance and still take care of me before I do all that other stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. That's beautiful. I love that. So food is a big passion of mine. And I love to frame food in the context of abundance and empowerment versus restriction. So how do you view food as medicine, nourishment, and strength now versus previously?
Yeah, I think that's one big thing that also plays a role with my clients too. Because yeah, like I've tried a few diets in the past, but calories, calorie counting and all that, like macro counting. I never got big into that, but to me, if you're eating all the right stuff, you shouldn't have to do that. And that's also what I teach my clients. Once you kind of get back to the basics and stop making it so freaking complicated, you shouldn't have to follow a diet, follow some type of plan, count calories. And so yeah, you can eat as much of whatever it is as long as it's serving your body and helping you, on your journey. And that restrictive mindset just yeah, has to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's so important. So yeah, I'm glad that you're spreading that message with your well. So this is something that I see pretty common in the more holistic health space is taking our pain, our struggle, our health diagnosis, and using that to formulate our purpose. So, what made you choose health nutrition coaching instead of returning to either, traditional Western medicine or even maybe opening another gym?
Oh, that's a big one. It was just the obvious answer for me. It was just like a natural evolution. I mean, I feel like, without my nursing background, I wouldn't be where I am, but it also led me to open the gym. And then the gym also got me to where I am, today. And so pair that with my story, of course.
Mhm.
Um, because I do know that you can heal beyond the diagnosis. Just to throw that little thing out there. Um, but
Catch.
yeah. And healing can look different for everybody. For me, I was able to reverse all of my symptoms. Um, and have a much better quality of life than I mean, I feel like I'm probably the healthiest, that I've probably ever been. Um, so that can look different for everybody, as far as what kind of quality of life you want to bring, where, what your goals are. Um, but yeah, it was a no-brainer for me. I mean, this has led me here. And yes, I mean, also I don't work with patients with autoimmune, but I think between, again, going back to my nursing journey, the gym, um, doing some of my own research, women with PCOS, I feel like are a little neglected and kind of brushed off and dismissed. Um, and I wouldn't want, I made that choice, coming to you. But I wouldn't want any woman to feel like no matter who they go to, that whatever diagnosis they have, that they would be just, dismissed and continue to feel stuck and limited by that diagnosis. And so no matter what it is, yes, I work with women with PCOS, but the- there's so much they have to know there's so much they can do to help themselves. And that's where, you and I come in to help guide them on that journey too.
Absolutely. And I love what you said about, you know, different people have a different story, and 100%. Each of us are so unique,
Mhm.
and not just in our experiences, our lifestyles, our environments. So even if we have the same quote diagnosis, we got there two completely
Oh
different
yeah.
ways.
Yeah.
That I think is a big piece of the healing beyond the diagnosis piece of the puzzle is that when you're just confined to this diagnosis box, that is such a helpless and hopeless place to be. But once you do that investigative work to figure out how did we get here, and
Yeah.
let's unpack that, that is where the healing really begins and really can empower somebody. But then it's their body, their choice, right? You can educate and share and show like this, if you do these things, this is the path you're going to go. If you keep doing what you're doing, this is the path you're going to go. You
Yeah.
can guide which direction you want to go. It's not, not up to me, even though I've been called a food Nazi. Like I don't really care what you eat, honestly. It's your body and your choice. I'm guiding you. This is
Yeah.
the choice that I would make if I were in your shoes, and the choices that I've made because I was in similar
Exactly.
situations.
Yeah.
And that's the recommendation, and then it's up to you
Like,
to
yeah.
follow the steps, and because I'm not sitting there next to you as you're putting the food on your fork.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
Like I said, my journey's, I mean, been like 5 years of yes, like it started with the gluten stuff, but you go through life. There's some stressful moments. And so you have some flare-ups. And now like it's such a priority to me. No, it's not something I stress over, but it's always top of mind what I'm eating and what I'm planning for. I mean, um, yeah, kind of going back to, you were asking me about family support and stuff. And like my husband is always great because whenever we travel, he knows that I would like to have a kitchen if I can. So, whether that means an Airbnb or a hotel where we can still kind of make some things, or, if they have some decent food choices, or like we went to Miami, for example, a few weeks back, and I brought coolers full of stuff because he was going to be gone all day. So I had like prepared chicken that I could just cut up and eat, cold. And so yeah, it it does not happen overnight. Um,
Mhm.
you really have to, you learn, like you said, because of different backgrounds and sensitivities, and whatever lifestyle you were living before, you have to kind of learn and grow with it. And there's going to be some ups and downs along the way.
Mhm. No, it's a journey. It's not a straight line path.
Exactly.
It's going to
Yep.
be uphill, downhill, around the corners, and all those sorts of things.
Yep.
But having control over what we're consuming, first, obviously, awareness of it, and then having control over it. Um, it's become, second nature for me as well. And it's interesting that you were mentioning bringing the coolers and finding a place with the kitchen. It didn't even dawn on me, but like we bought an Airstream a couple of years ago, and so 90% of the time, if we're traveling in the U.S., we're traveling with the Airstream. So I always have my kitchen and my
Yeah.
refrigerator, and my
Yeah.
pantry stocked full of all the things that I know are going to heal and nourish my body. Obviously, when we're in certain parts of the country, we can't get certain things. Which is very interesting. But we adapt and adjust, and I have emergency snacks on hand all the time. Um, but that's a piece of the puzzle is setting yourself up for success. And now probably for you too, it's second nature. It's foundational. It's not a it's a non-negotiable for me.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay, so now you're doing health coaching, and that is a completely different model of care, which is fantastic from what you were doing before. And so, how is the way that you help women now radically different from how you helped your patients and even your gym clients before?
Oh, I mean, there's no comparison. There's I'm saying no similarities, I should say. Um,
Mhm,
yeah, because it's a huge focus on nutrition. And
mhm,
then the kind of the sub piece probably to that is a little bit of the psychology behind it too. And those subconscious, things that we do for years and years. Like for me, like I mentioned, it was just kind of always stopping and grabbing a quick breakfast at, Starbucks or something on the way to work. Or if my husband was gone, I would just plan on going to like Panera and getting a quick salad instead of actually, making stuff. And um, so learning how to just break that cycle, um, is a huge, huge piece of that, and celebrating all the wins along the way, of course, too, which, yeah, like I remember at one point, I wish I had a coach like myself. Because I remember at one point, I mean, I definitely had you, but it like at one point I was like, what can I eat? I would just get like so frustrated because I was like, everything just makes me feel awful. But that wasn't the case. But like, just kind of celebrating all the wins. But yeah, it's to me it's shifted to the nutrition is the biggest piece of the puzzle. To me, that's more
mhm,
for physical health, where the movement piece, I don't even really say like exercise anymore. To me, it's moving your body. That's more for the mental health. And
mhm,
that was always for me. Like I always said, like I run because I'm crazy because my a therapist is too much. But it was
It's a
true
great way.
because that was always like, yeah, that was always my, mental therapy. Um,
Mhm,
and so helping my clients see what I saw in the fact that food is medicine, and
mhm,
yeah, it's going to help you. But then for me, because it was so easy, and like I said, I do realize it's not easy, you can't just tell somebody to eat better or to eat X, Y, and Z without really kind of deep diving into why they're so attached to those foods that they were eating before.
The emotional component of that for sure. Um, yeah,
Mm.
it's interesting that you mentioned you know, touching back on your former life when convenience was um, key, and then switching to gym, it's just interesting because those are a couple of the areas that I'm looking into for my book, not just the convenience ultra processed foods, but the convenience in our lifestyles that have engineered movement out of our daily routine. So many different things that we do today, we can just push a button, or, and our food just shows up at the door, which is great. It's great sometimes, but if we're doing that all the time, then we're not shopping, we're not making those decisions, we're not moving our body. Like there's so many steps of our day-to-day life that we are no longer moving or doing. And you and I are both sitting right now, we're recording a podcast, and we've been
Yeah.
sitting for over an hour, and it's like we both know that we shouldn't be sitting for an hour time. But there's just so many things now that are so common that we don't no longer do that we were doing even just like 5, 10 years ago. So that's just like a couple other pieces of kind of like the health puzzle tied in with the convenience piece.
One of the biggest things that sticks out to me that I can't remember if for some reason I'm picturing it. But I feel like it was from a book, and they were commenting on how fitness people go to, especially I think like, LA, for example, they have 2 stories a lot of the times, right? For fitness
Mhm.
classes up top, all the regular equipment down the bottom, whatever. But it showed that people were at this fitness facility taking the escalator to get up to the top level.
Why do they have it here?
I know. So,
Yeah.
like that's like, I mean, that's a perfect example right there of the convenience, side of things, like you said. And yeah, like that's still an opportunity to move your body, like walking up the stairs to get to that class.
Yes.
So, but unfortunately, in the world that we live in, there are escalators at fitness
Mhm.
facilities for something like that. So, yeah.
Gosh, gosh. And I also wanted to touch on too, one piece that you shared on your journey when you said it was challenging and you kind of wished you had a coach to kind of help you through, because you get to a point where a lot of us get on this journey where we get so frustrated. We're like, I don't know what the heck to eat. Like, I can't have this. I can't have that. This has this in it. And you just get almost like decision fatigue. And then you go to the store and it's like the label says this, but I don't think I should be having that. And you almost cut your intake down to just about nothing. And so that actually was one of the many driving pieces behind writing a second book, is that all of the recipes of my second book, over 200 right now, are naturally gluten-free, dairy-free, and egg-free. Because those 3 categories are typically the highest food reactivity that I see with my patients. And then also on the same, on the flip side, the hardest recipes to find
Oh,
that are actually
yeah.
and have all 3 of those.
Oh,
So that's why I'm compiling, and I have 25 people out there testing them right now. So
yeah.
hopefully they're good. I mean, I like them, but I can that's the trouble, is like I've been doing this for 15 years, so I can eat a lot of stuff that, I wouldn't have eaten 15 years ago. And so
Oh,
I
yeah.
want to make sure that some of them are going to be a little more advanced, but some of them are going to be entry level too, to be able to help people wherever they are in that journey, to help guide them on those steps.
Yeah. Yeah. I know like one of the biggest things for me is like cheese, for example. We put cheese on like everything, but a lot of times you don't need cheese on there to make it taste better, really.
Um,
You
Once
know?
you learn about how they make cheese, like
Oh
it's just
yeah.
uh, like I used to absolutely I loved cheese. Cheese was harder for me to give up the gluten
Mm.
personally, because I love cheese so much. But um 2025 is my dairy-free year officially. Like I dabbled in it previously and never fully pulled the trigger. But this has been my dairy-free year, and do I miss it? Occasionally I do, but for the most part I don't, because I feel so much better.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I mean, and
I'd
even
rather feel like this, or eat the cheese. So I'm like, I'm good right now.
yeah. And even like in, my transition period, like I tried the gluten-free breads. I tried a lot of different, gluten-free pastas. I found like one now that actually I like, or I just do like spaghetti squash, instead. Like having like a gluten-free pasta is more like a treat then. Um,
Mhm.
but I don't even have the breads anymore because when you look at the label, the ingredients on those,
Yeah.
you're like, what? But
Gotta
yes,
go
they were
after
kind of,
the gluten-free lie is
Yeah,
a lot of it is still cross-contaminated. It still has
exactly.
gluten in it. It's
Yeah,
more ultra processed than its counterpart. And so
exactly.
all the blood sugar spikes and plummets and all that other stuff we're trying to avoid, it's incurring all of that. Plus, I know for myself, I would eat more of it because it's healthy, right? So I can have more.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, that was like part of my journey where felt like I had to try some of that stuff.
Mhm.
But in the end, once you really kind of start getting into it and becoming stronger on the journey, you're like, nah, those aren't serving me.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. So this is something I wanted to kind of circle back on it too, that you alluded on or alluded to earlier, is that women very often, whether it's PCOS or autoimmune or they're, just burnt out, they feel unseen, particularly in the Western medical system.
Mhm.
What do you wish they knew about true healing?
Mhm.
Mm.
Just, I mean, that it's possible. It really is. Like to me, you can heal anything. And like I kind of said already, yeah, healing might look different, for different people. And that kind of depends on too how far advanced in the disease or illness, it is. But you can feel better. Um,
Mhm.
just there's hope, and you don't have to listen just because one doctor tells you, this is the be all end all. Do the research, advocate for yourself, reach out to someone, like one of us. You really have to be your own advocate, I think is what it comes down to. Once you accept and that there you can heal beyond a diagnosis, um, yeah, you then have to kind of take that next step. And if that doctor, or practitioner is not willing to work with you on that, then it's okay to move on and find somebody else that
Mhm.
will be open-minded to what you really want to achieve.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. And so, as you're sharing today, and I've shared previously many times too, but our stories uh, are medicine too, because our stories are relatable. They're overcoming, unfortunately, common situations, health situations that people find themselves in. What parts of your story do you feel that your clients most often relate to, and why do you think that is?
Ooh. Um, I mean, I think the just coming to terms with the nutrition thing, I think is the biggest piece of that. Because I get a lot of women that reach out that have tried everything, tried way more. I never really had an issue with my weight, necessarily. Do I look back at pictures and see how puffy my face was? Yeah. But I never really had a weight issue. But when they feel like they've tried everything, and they just feel stuck and like there's nothing else to turn to. I think, like with me, that was when I was like, ah, that's the missing piece. That's what I've been ignoring the entire time, is that food is medicine and food can help you heal. And food does play an even bigger role, than we realize. Um, and yeah, I mean, and that's a big eye opener. And then, I help my clients along the way because it doesn't happen overnight again. So, so they have to do some inner work. Also, like I guide them through some inner work before we even jump into talking more about food, and healing using food, on their journey.
Yeah, yeah. And the food piece too, obviously looking at abundance and what are we nourishing with, but also what are we releasing that's no longer serving us. So I think it's a balance of the two coming together, which is beautiful harmony when you find that balance and your body's like, oh, this is fantastic.
Yep. Yeah, and that's why, I mean, we add in stuff before we even start subtracting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I want them to feel all the things along the way. Because
Feel all the things that the ultra processed stuff has stopped them from feeling. They can feel
yeah,
those.
exactly. Yeah.
Important step.
Yeah.
Um, so much of what we've talked about and just creating a life that feels aligned. And then how would you describe the lifestyle that you've created now and how does it differ from your past? I think you've alluded to it in a couple of pieces, but just kind of looking, big picture.
Yeah. Making making my health and me a priority and not feeling bad about it, I think is like probably one of the biggest things. Yes, I alluded to the convenience, piece. That was probably like one of the biggest things. But even taking that a step further, I was just always wanting to take care of everybody else, on my nursing role and everything. And then, at the gym, I just wanted everything to be perfect all the time and put on a smiling, happy face. Um, but now I realize it's okay. It's okay to put me first and have that balance. And even like my husband knows, he knows I like my alone time and, you know, um, yeah, that's especially like, again, especially for women. You have to realize you need that. You can't continue to help everybody else when your health is failing and when when you're not fulfilled. It's that old age saying, you can't fill up somebody else's cup unless you fill up yours first. So, um,
Mhm. Or you can't pour from an empty vessel.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, it's okay. It's okay to make yourself a priority. And I
Mhm.
do, I prioritize my health and, I plan I've always probably kind of been like that, but I plan my day. Like, okay, what am I eating? When am I doing my workout? All of that stuff. Um, and, and then having that support system to go along with that is really great.
Let's dive into that a little bit deeper because, as we've discussed as well, healing is an ongoing, ever evolving journey that's not like a destination. Uh,
Mhm.
what daily practices, mindsets, or habits keep you grounded and connected and on your path on purpose?
Ooh, um, I, I think, like I just said, is planning is probably one of the biggest things. Is just making sure I have, the food there and or prepped. Like I'll make some juices at home, and if I have to prep them the night before, so I have them first thing in the morning. I do that. Um, I do some breathing exercises that I never would have done before.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I wouldn't say meditation. I've been off and on with meditation before, but I do implement the breathing exercises that I talk to my own clients about as well. Sleep, prioritizing sleep, I think is another big one. I probably do drive my husband crazy with that one a little bit.
I know I do. I'm like, I need my sleep. If
Yeah.
like I'm worthless now, I know that I'm like, you don't want to be around me if I don't get my sleep.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. And then even just all the things to like make sure it's optimal, like the temperature down.
Quiet,
Yeah.
dark.
I don't want any form of light in my eyes, like anything. So, but yeah, so that's also probably been before I was probably the person that said I was like, I'll be fine on like 5, 6 hours of sleep. No,
Mhm. Same.
nope. I like my 7, 8 hours of sleep. Uh,
That's surviving. That's not thriving.
exactly.
Big,
Yeah.
big difference between the two.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. So I practice holistic functional medicine. And so I love that it encompasses the whole person, not just the lab test or the symptoms. How have you rewritten healthy from coming from that Western medicine perspective This is mentally, emotionally, spiritually, as well as physically.
That's a good one. I mean, I think that's why I do what I do. Um, and even as I got out of nursing, I had taken, I don't remember, some type of class. It was for some CEUs, but it was like more, holistic focused. And I think that was also kind of one thing that kind of started opening my eyes. But it made me see, that yeah, I mean, all these stressors,
Mhm.
what that is, a financial stressor, a personal stressor, it all plays a role in our healing. And yeah, and I've been through that. I've been through some major, life things, a divorce and a big move and, job changes and career changes, all of that stuff. Um, and so you have to, every piece really does have to, be aligned there. Um, because I mean, that was probably one of the first things I learned with you was about inflammation. And that can come not just, in the form of a physical, trigger. That can come in a lot of different forms. And so all those things can play a role, and you have to address all of that stuff. I mean, I definitely address the physical side and the emotional and mental side probably, throughout my program as well. But I also understand and I get to know my clients. And um, if there seems to be more, to the story and something that
Mhm.
I can't help them with, then I do recommend seeing other people, other professionals that might be able to help in that area. But yeah, it's definitely, again, I think my journey is just between the evolution of everything. Like I see the big picture now with all of it.
That's beautiful. I love that. And I see that too, that, each of us are going to, we've gone through stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All of us have gone through stuff, but each of us has gone through different stuff
Yeah.
and it's affected us differently.
Yeah.
And the, we need to work through that in whatever capacity that looks like for you to process it.
Yeah.
Because as you mentioned before, that, you need your alone time.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that a lot of people don't give themselves.
No.
Like, just to give a quick example of that, my husband, we were watching a movie last night because I am working on braiding my hair, and I have to do something, like I have to watch something while I'm doing it 'cause my hands are full, occupied, and I can't just stare off into the distance while I'm braiding my hair. Like, I need to be distracted. So we're watching Netflix, and then it did that, the death spiral thing. It was just spinning and spinning and spinning. Well, I'm the techie one. So my hands were busy. I couldn't fix it. The second it started spinning, he picked up his phone and started doomsday scrolling. I
Oh
was like,
my
you can't
gosh.
sit for 5 seconds
Yeah.
without doing something. So
Yeah.
I think just as a society, we're so used to being distracted and pulled away and just like we can't sit with our own thoughts. And that's not healthy, I don't
No.
think.
No.
Especially all the stuff that we've gone through in the last 5 years, even the stuff we've gone through in the last week. Like it is a time to, be processing things. Like we need to be sitting with our thoughts and working through them and maybe spending time and having the deeper discussions with whether it's a loved one or a professional or somebody, and just and work through what we're feeling, because it's okay to feel all the feels. It's
Yeah.
not okay to shove them down and ignore them and then let them explode, and it's going to explode either with an emotional outburst or a health issue or what have you. It's going to come out in some way or another.
In some form. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
I even like, and this was huge for me too. This is something I probably wouldn't have done before, but with all the stuff that's happened recently, um, I have taken a social media detox, for the weekend, and I've not been on
Mm-hmm.
social media at all.
Hmm.
And it feels good. I did have to
Hmm.
catch myself a few times, like just because if I'm on my phone, like it's just habit, like I scroll over to it and then like I'm about to click it just to like start, like you said,
Yep.
scrolling. Yeah. Yeah. And like I even debated, I was like, should I delete the apps off my phone for the weekend? But in some ways, I wanted to challenge myself a little bit, to actually say, like, to catch myself and realize, what I'm doing. And so I did. I had to catch myself a few times, but it's been great. And so sometimes, yeah, maybe it's that, it's just taking a break from it. I have done, like, this was like probably early on when I started health coaching, but I've done a challenge with some clients that I was working with, and that was one of them. And it was a
Hmm.
struggle for some people to
Yeah.
just stay off of that stuff for a day, you know?
Yeah. It really is. It
Yeah.
really is. We often will go when we're RVing way away from people. We
Mhm.
don't even have cell signal, and it's fantastic. I'm like, I can't be online, and I can't answer. I can't reply to text messages. Sorry. Not a touch for the next, 24, 48 hours, whatever it is. But that is it's powerful. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would recommend doing, having challenging people to do that for themselves. I'm not saying like be completely out of touch and not communicate with your family. That's
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. No,
It's like, the social medias and
the new
things
social
like
media for me, I was like, it needs to go for right now. And, because of my business, it's not like I can just give it up altogether. But I was like, this is
that.
the perfect weekend to just stay off of it.
That's funny. I'm off of it this weekend for other reasons, just because I don't have time. But that's probably
Mhm.
um, well, Lindsay, I have one final question for you. So looking back is always very, very powerful. If you could sit with an earlier version of yourself, maybe at the start of this journey, what would you tell her?
Hmm. At the start of my own health journey or the start of nursing health journey?
Or
Um,
because you've had different journeys.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't, you know, because we don't have that manual. And so whether I made the right or wrong choice in the moment, who
And all
knows?
those pieces make you who you are today. And it
Exactly.
helped with, you needed to learn that lesson to be able to help you with something down the line. So yeah.
Exactly. But I think when I started, this health journey, and this is a big thing that I talk to my clients and why I do things the way I do with my clients is that I'm not into, the band-aids. And take that literally or figuratively, however you want to, but no band-aids, no quick fixes. Because on my health journey, it's taken time. Um, and I think I knew it was going to take time, when I started everything, started working with you and all that. Um, but even to get to this point, you're still always learning and growing, um, and learning some more. So, so yeah, just being patient with it, embracing the process, celebrating all the good stuff along the way, and realizing that it's all happening for a reason. It's getting you to where you need to go. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, that's powerful. I love that. I do. I loved hearing, the bits and pieces of your story. I obviously was involved integrally in some areas along the way, but it's definitely interesting to hear it, all laid out in the different stages. And, that is something that I do with my patients on the initial visit, at least go through a timeline of events and kind of get an understanding of them as a human and their life experiences and their health experiences and those sorts of things, because all of it plays a role in the foundation of you and your story and your health and this part of your health journey.
Yeah.
Um, are there any final things that you want to share in areas that you wanted to kind of touch on that we didn't discuss?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Um, I will just promote our event that's coming up. So yeah, depending on when you're catching this, but it does start October 9th is the first night. And as I've said a few times, kind of hinted at throughout this episode, it is called Unwritten Healing Beyond the Diagnosis. It is a virtual event. It is free to register. You're going to be hearing from speakers like us that have lived the journey, and are now teaching others how to do the same. So I will be speaking on the last night, which is October 23rd, and then Dr. Anya will be October 16th. So even if you can't make all the sessions, there will be recordings. If you can't make the first one, but you can make the other two, that's fine too. Go ahead and register. And I'll make sure to put the link with all the details in the notes for you. So super excited for that.
I am too.
Yes. Wow.
And now I'll hand the podcast show back to its
Back to
original
me.
host.
Thank you for having myself on today.
Thank you for agreeing to be here.
Yeah, this was great, because I think it just hearing my story, I think a lot of women can relate to it. You were a big part of that, so this was a perfect way to do it. But yes, I will be back as host next time. Whew, what a ride, right? If you're still here, thank you. Thank you for holding space for this story, for being curious, and for believing that healing is possible, even if your path looks nothing like you expected. My journey from burnout and autoimmune chaos to where I am today wasn't a straight line, and honestly, I'm still learning, still growing, still rewriting. And that's exactly what Unwritten is all about. This October, I'm bringing together an incredible lineup of speakers, including today's guest host, Dr. Anya Szigeti, for Unwritten, Healing Beyond the Diagnosis, a free virtual event designed to help you take back your health story, one chapter at a time. Whether you're newly diagnosed or just sick of being dismissed, Unwritten will give you the tools, the validation, and the hope you've been missing. You don't have to settle for managing your symptoms. You are made to thrive, and this event will show you how. Head to the link in the show notes to grab your free ticket, and if you're ready for deeper support, check out the Gold Pass upgrade for lifetime access, bonus resources, and the exclusive Healing Map workbook. Until next time, stay curious, stay empowered, and remember, your story is not over. It's just getting started.